The scariest part about manipulation isn't that it happens. It's that most of the time, you felt fine while it was happening. You didn't feel controlled. You felt understood. You felt seen. You maybe even felt grateful. That's not a coincidence. That's architecture. A dark psychology isn't a villain's trick. It's not something reserved for narcissists in Netflix documentaries or cult leaders in compounds. It's a structural reality of how human influence works, and it operates whether you study it or not. The only difference between the person using it and the person it's being used on is awareness. So here's what this video is actually about. Not manipulation as a horror story, but manipulation as a mirror, one that shows you exactly how human beings are built, what we're vulnerable to, and why some people have figured out how to use that against you before you even realized there was a game being played. By the end of this, you won't just understand dark psychology, you'll understand yourself. And that distinction, that's what changes everything. Here's the question nobody asks, and it's the one that matters most. Why does manipulation work on smart people? Not just occasionally, consistently. Studies show that higher IQ doesn't reliably protect against social manipulation. Neither does emotional intelligence. Neither does education level. In some cases, being more analytical actually makes you more vulnerable because you're better at rationalizing the story someone else gave you. Think about that. The brain you're most proud of, the one that talks you through problems, the one that you trust, can become the very tool used to convince you of a lie. But why? How does that work? That's not a rhetorical question. That has a very specific answer. And when you hear it, really hear it, it will reframe every relationship, every sales pitch, every argument you've ever been in. Because it turns out that manipulation doesn't attack your logic. It uses it. Stay with me, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. Part 1. The 3 pillars dark psychology is built on. Dark psychology, as a field, is essentially the study of how human cognitive architecture can be exploited. And that architecture has 3 core vulnerabilities, not weaknesses. Vulnerabilities. There's a difference, and that difference matters. A weakness implies failure. A vulnerability implies design. These are features of being human, and the people who understand them can use them like instruments. Pillar 1. Reciprocity. In 1971, psychologist Dennis Regan ran an experiment. He had participants rate paintings while a partner, secretly a research assistant, either did them a small uninstructed favor, bringing them a Coke, or didn't. Afterwards, the assistant asked participants to buy raffle tickets. The group that received the Coke bought twice as many tickets. They didn't know why. They just felt like they should. This is reciprocity, the hardwired social debt mechanism. When someone gives us something, our brain registers an obligation, even if we didn't ask for anything. Dark psychology exploits this by leading with small gestures, gifts, favors, attention, compliments. None of these feel like manipulation, and because they don't yet. But they're building a ledger in your nervous system, and at some point, someone cashes in that ledger, and you comply because refusing feels like a violation of a moral code you didn't consciously choose. The manipulator didn't ask for anything. They just made you feel like you owed them. But here's where it gets darker. Pillar 2. Social proof. The human brain evolved in small groups where social consensus was survival information. If everyone in the tribe ran from the bushes, you ran. You didn't stop to analyze. You followed. That mechanism never left us. We just built modern society on top of it. Now social proof looks like everyone loves this person, so they must be trustworthy. Everyone's buying this, so it must be valuable. No one else is challenging this idea, so I probably shouldn't either. Cults don't start with demands. They start with community. A skilled manipulator builds an environment where their version of reality is the only one socially validated, where questioning them feels like social rejection, not rational thinking, and your brain, wired to prefer belonging over accuracy, starts filtering out information that would require you to stand alone. This is why intelligent people inside cults, inside abusive relationships, inside corrupt organizations, can see the evidence right in front of them and still not see it. It's not stupidity, it's social architecture working exactly as designed. Therefore, by the time you reach Pillar 3, it's almost over. Pillar 3, identity capture. This is the most advanced tool in the dark psychology arsenal, and it's the one most people never recognize until years later. Identity capture happens when someone ties your sense of self to a belief, a relationship, a group, or a decision in a way that makes questioning it feel like self-destruction. Think about it. You don't just believe certain things, you are them. You're not someone who made a decision. You're someone who is that decision. Once a manipulator anchors something to your identity, your loyalty, your intelligence, your values, any evidence that contradicts it doesn't feel like information. It feels like an attack. So what do you do when attacked? You defend, you rationalize, you double down. And the manipulator? They're not even in the room anymore. You're doing the work for them. Part 2. The 3 dark archetypes and what they actually want. Dark psychology famously identifies 3 personality structures as the Dark Triad. But most explanations of these are surface level and sensationalized. Let me give you the version that's actually useful. The narcissist doesn't just want admiration. They want to regulate their internal emotional state using you as the instrument. When you praise them, they stabilize. When you challenge them, they destabilize. And then they punish the source of that destabilization, you. The manipulation isn't calculated, it's desperate, which makes it in some ways more dangerous, because there's no ceiling on what a desperate nervous system will do. The Machiavellian operates differently. Pure strategy. No emotional dysregulation. They feel very little. What they want is control of the outcome. They will tell you exactly what you need to hear, give you just enough to keep you invested, and discard you the moment the utility ends. Not out of cruelty, out of efficiency. That's what makes them hard to detect. They're often charming, often fair, often even generous, as long as it serves the end game. The psychopath, and I'm referring here to subclinical traits, not clinical diagnosis, operates with a near-complete absence of fear and guilt. They don't feel the social cost of lying. They don't feel the weight of betrayal. This means they can maintain deception longer, with better facial composure and with less internal conflict than anyone else in the room. The research is stark. Psychopathic individuals are significantly better at detecting and concealing emotional tells in others while masking their own. But here's what all 3 have in common. They are exploiting something that exists in you, not creating it, not installing it. They found the door that was already there and learned to open it. Which brings us to the most important part of this entire conversation. Here's the answer to the question we started with. Why does manipulation work on smart people? Because intelligence is a processing tool, not a defense system. Your brain does not have a manipulation detection module. It was never designed for that. It was designed to predict, to belong, to survive. And prediction, belonging, and survival are exactly what dark psychology targets. Every manipulation technique, without exception, works by presenting you with information that looks like what your brain was already looking for. Reciprocity works because your brain looks for fairness. Social proof works because your brain looks for safety in numbers. Identity capture works because your brain looks for coherence. The manipulator didn't create those needs, they just learned to speak their language. And here's the part no one tells you. Once you understand this, really understand it, the defense isn't to become emotionally disconnected. It's not to become cold or suspicious of everyone. The defense is to become more self-aware. Specifically, you need to audit your own needs in real time. When you feel an unusually strong pull toward trusting someone, ask yourself why. Not in an anxious way, in a clinical way. What did they do that triggered that? Was it a gesture, a compliment, validation of something you already believed? When you feel like questioning someone would make you a bad person, that's the signal. Not the crime of questioning, but the discomfort of doing it. And when your identity feels threatened by an idea, that's not evidence the idea is wrong. That's evidence you've been anchored. These 3 checks won't make you paranoid. They'll make you unprofitable as a target, because manipulators, especially the sophisticated ones, move on when exploitation costs more than it yields. They need compliance to be cheap. The moment someone requires real work to control, they redirect. Your awareness is your most powerful protective mechanism, not your intelligence, not your strength, your self-knowledge. Build trust. Confident, human, brief. Competence creates connection. I want to say something clearly before we close this out. This video isn't designed to make you suspicious of everyone around you. That would be counterproductive. And honestly, it would be a form of psychological damage in itself. Most people in your life are not operating from a dark psychology playbook. Most of the influence that surrounds you, from advertisers, from leaders, from people close to you, isn't weaponized. It's just human. People wanting to be liked, people wanting to be valued, people wanting to belong. What dark psychology really reveals isn't that humans are predators. It reveals that we are profoundly social animals whose social wiring can be exploited by a small percentage of people who discovered that early and decided to use it. The answer to that isn't isolation. It's not emotional detachment. It's building real relationships, real self-awareness, real standards for who gets access to your decisions, your emotions, and your sense of self. Because the most effective long-term defense against manipulation isn't a technique. It's an identity that's grounded enough that it doesn't need external validation to stay intact. That's not a self-help platitude. That's the structural reality. When you know who you are, not just who you think you should be, but who you actually are, the hooks don't catch the same way. You become what the field would call a low-value manipulation target. And in a world architected the way ours is, that's not a small thing. That's everything. So what does dark psychology actually reveal? Not that humans are broken, not that the world is full of monsters. It reveals something more precise and more useful than that. It reveals that Human beings are predictable in their deepest needs. And that predictability, when studied, becomes leverage. The people who understand this and use it selfishly, they become manipulators. The people who understand this and use it consciously to lead, to communicate, to protect, to connect, they become something different entirely. They become the people others can't quite explain why they trust. They become the people whose presence changes a room. They become the people who move through the world with a level of clarity that looks from the outside almost like luck. It's not luck. It's studied understanding of how human nature actually works, not how we wish it worked. Dark psychology at its core is just psychology. The dark part is only the application. And now that you've seen the architecture, the question isn't whether this knowledge exists. The question is, who's going to use it? And more specifically, how? Because there's a version of this that changes how you move through every negotiation, every relationship, every room you walk into. And we're going to get into that. But that's the next conversation. If this one hit, you already know what to do. Drop a comment below. Who in your life first made you question your own perception? And how long did it take you to see it clearly? I read every single one, and if you're not subscribed yet, you're already behind. Let's fix that.